All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are diving into something that goes way beyond just like, talking about your salary. It's this whole big idea of total rewards in 2025.
Yeah, it's really like the complete picture of how organizations are valuing their people, especially as we head into the next few years.
So, to really get into this, we've been poring over this source, the 2025 Total Rewards Playbook by Pyrate.
It's a really interesting playbook. It's essentially like a guide for companies,
Yeah.
right? They want to make sure that their reward strategy is not only, competitive, but that it also really puts people first.
So that's really our mission today for you listening. It's to sort of extract the most valuable pieces of this playbook.
Yeah, give the listeners a real sense of,
How total rewards are changing and what it means for, you like as you're thinking about your career and navigating the world of work, right?
absolutely.
And, the playbook starts off by asking some like really interesting, really fundamental questions.
Yeah, like how do companies ensure that, their pay is competitive, but they don't create these like internal issues of unfairness, right?
Right.
And then what does a truly impactful benefits package even look like when you have, employee well-being and flexibility and financial security are all kind of like at the forefront.
Right. And I think it goes even further to like how are companies rethinking their policies about where we work and how we work now that employees just expect more control, right?
Oh,
And then finally, like how can HR leaders really use information smartly to kind of personalize these rewards for
yeah.
individuals, but at the same time, making sure it actually helps the business.
Right. Align it with the business outcomes. Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So those are really the core things that we're diving into.
So maybe, to start off, like let's look at what the playbook calls this big shift. Moving to a people-first approach
Yeah.
when you're designing total rewards in 2025. And this is really the basis. This is the foundation for everything else, right?
Yeah, I love how the playbook talks about how, like, compensation isn't just this transaction anymore. Like, it's really
Yeah.
a key way for companies to show you how much they value you, right?
Hmm.
And this is especially important when you consider, like, all the stuff happening, right? Like, economic uncertainty, big societal shifts, managing families and personal responsibilities, and
Yeah.
just that like human need to do work that's actually meaningful.
Totally.
Right.
So that's kind of where this people first idea really comes into play.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting is how they break it down into these 10, I guess you could call them like fundamental principles.
Right.
Like these are the must-haves for a human-centered total reward strategy in 2025.
Okay.
So the first one they talk about is clarity of purpose, right? In
Yeah.
alignment with values.
Yeah. So basically, your total reward strategy should like actually support the organization's mission and value.
Right. Like the company should be walking the walk.
Right. And the playbook really emphasizes that people are increasingly looking for that connection.
Yeah.
It's not just about the free snacks, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's about feeling like how you're rewarded actually lines up with like the big picture of what the company's trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that leads us right into the second one, which is equity and transparency. Like those are non-negotiables.
I mean, those are table stakes.
Right. The playbook's like very blunt about this. If your pay practices are secretive or they feel unfair, you're just gonna like lose people's trust.
Yeah, you're going to have huge issues with.
And there's data to back this up.
Absolutely.
Like they mentioned this 2023 report from JC Capital, which is a nonprofit that kind of tracks how companies are behaving.
Yeah, they do a lot of work in this area.
And they found that only like a third of the largest U.S. companies were even looking at pay disparities.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's better than the year before, but still, it just shows you how critical this is becoming if you want to, get and keep good people.
Right, because people don't want to feel like they're getting a raw deal
Right, exactly.
without any explanation, right?
So for you listening, right, this means if you're looking for a job, you should be looking for companies that are open about how they pay.
Yeah.
It's a sign that they actually value fairness.
Absolutely. So the next one they talk about is personalization, right?
Yeah.
Across like a multi-generational workforce.
Right. Like this idea that one size fits all is so outdated.
Yeah, we have like 5 generations in the workforce now, I think. It's crazy.
Right. Everyone's at different points in their lives.
Totally.
So having like flexible options
Yeah.
and tailoring rewards to individual situations is just so important.
Right. It shows that the company sees you as an individual, not just like a number.
Yeah, exactly.
So the fourth one is well-being as a strategic pillar.
Okay.
And they really emphasize that, benefits related to your mental, physical, financial,
Right.
and social health are crucial for performance and also like your commitment to the company.
Yeah, I think we're seeing like real progress here, right? Like the playbook mentions a prediction from Paycor, which is an HR tech company,
Yeah, they're pretty well known in this
that
space.
like nearly half of employers are going to be like really expanding their mental health offerings by 2025,
Yeah.
which I think is great, going beyond like those basic employee assistance programs.
Yeah. It's a recognition that like your mental well-being is crucial, right, to your performance at work and just like your life overall.
Totally. And then the fifth fundamental principle is financial security and empowerment.
Right. So it's not just about what you earn today, but it's about like planning for your future,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
having financial education, options for emergency savings, and retirement planning.
Right. And then number six is flexibility as a standard, not a perk.
Yeah, it's like a must-have.
The playbook has some really like interesting data here.
Yeah.
They talk about how Paycor's research found that flexible work arrangements are actually the number one reason why people stay in a job.
So it's not even just about getting people in the door, but it's about keeping them there.
Right, which is a huge shift.
It really is a shift.
So for you, thinking about your career, like flexibility is probably going to be like a big decision factor.
Absolutely.
And then number seven is technology with a human touch. Right.
Yeah, so it's not about replacing humans with robots,
Right.
but it's about using technology to
Right.
make things more efficient, more personalized, and just, easier.
Right. And that leads to the next one, which is data informed, not data driven.
Yeah, there's a really important distinction there.
Yeah, I think like a lot of times people they hear all this stuff about data and analytics and they're like, oh, it's just going to be like robots deciding everything. But this is more about using data responsibly to make better decisions, right?
To augment human judgment.
Not just blindly following numbers,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, for example, data might show that a lot of people leave the company after 2 years.
Right.
And then a purely data-driven approach might be to, like, cut back on benefits before that point.
Oh, that's interesting.
But a data-informed approach would be more like, okay, why are they leaving? Is it, like, lack of growth opportunities, bad managers? And then, like, actually addressing those issues.
That's a really good point.
And then, the ninth one is consistency with local relevance, right?
Yeah, especially for companies that have a global workforce.
Right. So you have to have like your core principles, but you also have to be able to adapt to, different countries, different regions.
Yeah, different cultures, different regulations.
Different expectations.
Totally.
So it's that balancing act.
Right, finding that balance.
And then finally, continuous review and recalibration.
Yeah, so you can't just like set it and forget it.
Right.
You need to constantly be getting feedback, looking at the data,
Right.
seeing what's working, what's not working.
And adjusting, right.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Those are really like the foundational principles.
Yeah, the 10 commandments of a human-centered total rewards strategy.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics of like building a competitive and equitable compensation framework.
Right, so this is about how you actually determine how much people get paid.
Right, because your salary is still super important, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of like getting and keeping talent.
Yeah, and I think, the playbook notes that, while overall wage growth might be kind of stabilizing,
Yeah.
Willis Towers Watson projects average U.S. salary budgets around 4% in 2025.
Yeah.
But we're still dealing with, things like inflation
Right.
and just the fact that people are really demanding fair pay.
Right.
So it's still a really important topic.
Totally. So the first priority of 8 is pay transparency with context and communication.
So you can't just like publish salary ranges. You have to explain why those ranges are what they are.
Explain how pay decisions are made.
Right. You have to give people the context.
Right. And I think we're seeing a lot more laws
Oh, yeah.
like popping up requiring companies to be transparent.
Definitely.
So, it's all about building trust, right? Through that openness.
Yeah. And then the next priority is internal equity and pay fairness.
So people in similar roles should be paid fairly.
Right. Regardless of their gender, their race, their background.
Right. Any other factors.
Yeah.
And the playbook mentions some data from Mercer, which is a big global HR consulting firm that shows that like way more companies are like really prioritizing internal pay equity reviews in 2025.
Yeah, because people talk. Right. And they compare salaries.
Totally.
So it's important to be fair.
And then the third priority is market competitiveness in targeted segments.
So with, maybe tighter budgets in the future,
Right.
the playbook suggests focusing on the roles and skills that are really, crucial to the business.
Right, like AI, cybersecurity, even frontline workers.
Yeah, it's not just about giving everyone a raise.
Right.
It's about being strategic.
Exactly. And then total compensation framing.
So this is about, when you look at your compensation,
Yeah.
you're not just looking at your salary, you're looking at benefits, you're looking at time off, you're looking at all these other things.
Right, the whole package.
The whole package.
And the playbook mentions some data from Paychex, which is a, payroll and HR company,
Yeah.
that a lot of employees don't even realize the value of their benefits.
Yeah, they really underestimate it.
So you, as an employee, need to make sure you understand
Totally.
the full picture.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then the next priority is performance and skills-based pay differentiation.
Yeah, so this is moving away from, just rewarding people based on, how long they've been at the company or their job title,
Right.
and more about, what skills they have, what results they achieve,
Right.
and their overall impact.
Which I think is really cool because it's very much aligned with how work is changing.
Yeah, totally.
And then priority number 6 is pay governance and manager accountability.
So this is about, making sure that compensation policies are applied fairly
Right.
and that managers are trained.
Right, because your manager plays a huge role in how you feel about your pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then for global companies, again, we see global consistency with local flexibility.
Yeah, that keeps coming up.
Right, finding that right balance.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the 8th one is compensation as a driver of trust and belonging.
Yeah, so when you feel like you're being paid fairly,
Right.
you're more likely to trust your employer, you're more likely to be engaged,
Right.
and you're more likely to stay with the company.
Exactly.
So it's about more than just the money.
Totally.
It's about the whole experience.
Okay, so that's how compensation is evolving.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears to high-impact benefits programs.
Yeah, because benefits are becoming so important.
Especially with healthcare costs rising, right?
Absolutely.
The playbook actually cites research from Hub International,
Mm-hmm.
which is an insurance brokerage and consulting firm
Yeah.
that projects an 8% increase in U.S. medical costs
Oh, wow.
in 2025.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So this is a really big concern.
Yeah, for both employers and employees.
So a strong benefits program has to support all of you.
Yeah, your whole person.
Right, physical, mental,
well,
emotional well-being.
Yeah, the whole picture.
And they actually outline 9 really essential components.
Okay.
So the first one is affordability without compromise.
So how do we make sure that employees can actually afford
Right.
their health care and other benefits?
Right, without compromising quality.
Right, exactly.
And this is where things like, plan design and virtual care can really come in.
Yeah, those are becoming really popular.
And then the second component is whole person well-being, which we've touched on.
Right, this idea that all of these different aspects of your health are interconnected.
Right, and Paycor's data showing all those employers are expanding mental health benefits.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
Really emphasizes that shift, right?
Yeah, I think.
To a more holistic approach.
And then we have personalization of benefits offerings.
Yeah, just like with compensation,
Yeah,
one size fits all just doesn't cut it.
it really doesn't.
People have different needs,
Yeah.
different priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So offering a variety of options,
Ah.
from family building benefits
Yeah.
to elder care support to pet insurance
Mhm.
even is becoming so important.
Yeah, and then flexibility across time and life stages.
Right. So this is things like paid leave for caregivers,
Mm.
flexible work arrangements,
Yeah.
and even mental health days.
Right.
So it's acknowledging that you have a life outside of work, right?
Totally.
And you need support at different times.
And then the fifth component is the use of data
Oh, yeah.
and analytics.
Mhm.
Right.
Proactive use of data
Mm-hmm.
to design benefits programs.
Yeah, so they're looking at what benefits employees are actually using
Right.
and what they're not using.
To try to personalize things, right?
And maybe even predict potential health risks.
Interesting.
And then the sixth one is support for financial well-being.
Oh, yeah, that's so important.
Because financial stress is a huge issue
Huge.
for a lot of people.
Right.
So, the playbook talks about programs like emergency savings funds, assistance with debt, and
Right.
things like that.
And they mentioned data from EBRI, right?
Hmm.
The Employee Benefit Research Institute.
Yeah.
That shows a lot of people are really interested in emergency savings plans.
Yeah, because it's a real need.
For sure. And then the next component is all about the digital experience, right?
Yeah, digital navigation and a simplified experience.
So making it easy to understand your benefits?
Right, because benefits can be so confusing.
Yeah, it's like trying to decipher like a foreign language sometimes, right?
Totally.
But the playbook mentions that like most employers are using technology to manage benefits,
Mm-hmm.
but now they're trying to make it actually like user friendly.
Yeah, which is great.
Which is really important
Okay.
because if you can't understand your benefits, like
Yeah, it defeats the purpose.
what's the point, right?
Exactly.
And then the eighth component is inclusive and equitable access.
So making sure that the benefits are actually meeting the needs of a diverse workforce.
Right, so that includes things like reproductive health care,
Mhm.
gender-affirming care.
Yeah, and other benefits that, might be specific to certain groups,
Right.
employees.
And then finally, future-focused benefits planning.
Yeah, so thinking about the long term,
Right.
like career development, retirement planning.
Skilling.
Yeah, even like a phased retirement.
Right, so it's not just about the here and now.
Right, it's about your whole career
Totally.
and beyond.
So we're seeing like a huge shift in benefits, right? It's definitely away from just the basics to like something that's way more
Comprehensive.
personalized
Yeah,
and considers like your whole person.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about workforce mobility and flexibility.
Yeah, that's another area that's changing so much.
Right, and it's way more than just your physical location, right?
Right, it's about career growth. It's about like autonomy over your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having options, really.
Right, and data from Willis Towers Watson shows that a lot of companies are actually planning to like invest more
Yeah.
in those areas.
It's becoming a priority.
So they outline 7 trends in this space.
Okay.
The first one is mobility beyond expatriation.
So we're moving away from like those traditional,
Yeah, those long-term assignments.
yeah, like you move to another country for 5 years
Right.
and more towards like short-term projects, virtual collaborations.
Right, like maybe you go for a few months or you just work remotely with a global team.
Right, exactly.
And then the second trend is internal talent mobility as a retention strategy.
So this is about giving employees opportunities
Yeah,
to grow within the company.
right. Learn new skills, take on different roles.
Yeah, and the playbook actually cites data from LinkedIn
Interesting.
that shows that employees at companies with good internal mobility programs,
Yeah.
they stay almost twice as long.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
So if you're listening and thinking about your career, like
Yeah,
look for companies that have clear paths for growth within the company.
totally. And then the third trend is remote work normalization with guardrails.
Right. So remote work is here to stay,
Yeah, it's not going away.
but companies are starting to like refine their policies.
Right, they're figuring out.
So it's working. Right.
Yeah, like who's eligible, how do we measure productivity?
Right. All those things.
Yeah.
And then the fourth trend is flexible scheduling models.
So this is like things like 4-day work weeks.
Right. Or asynchronous collaboration,
Yeah, where teams can work.
like on different schedules.
Yeah, at different times.
Which can be great for work-life balance.
Yeah, but it requires a lot of communication.
And coordination. For sure. And then the fifth trend is all about the complexities of cross-border work.
Yeah, so with more people working remotely from different countries,
Mm.
there are a lot of tax and legal issues.
Right. It gets really complicated.
Yeah, but it can be a headache.
So companies need to make sure they're doing things right.
Totally.
And then the sixth trend is digital nomad and borderless talent policies,
So this is where companies are saying, okay, you can work from anywhere.
which is pretty cool,
It is cool.
but also kind of scary, right?
Yeah, there are definitely some challenges.
Like, how do you manage compensation and benefits when people are all over the place?
Yeah, what about the company's responsibility for employees in different countries?
Right. It's a whole new world.
It really is.
And then finally, flexible mobility as a DEI strategy.
So making sure that flexible work options are accessible
Right.
to everyone.
And that it actually helps to create a more diverse
Yeah,
and inclusive workplace.
totally.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, right?
Yeah, we have.
Let's talk about data-informed strategies to personalize and optimize
Right, so this is about actually using data
to make things better.
to improve the employee experience.
And the playbook emphasizes that. Like, it's not just about the numbers.
Right. It's about being data informed.
Data-driven, right?
Yeah, using data to inform your decisions.
But not letting it dictate everything.
Right. You still need that human element.
And LinkedIn data shows that, like, a lot of HR leaders are actually increasing their investment in HR analytics.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's becoming really important.
Totally.
So they outline 6 key strategies here.
Okay.
The first one is to use benefits utilization data.
So looking at how employees are actually using their benefits.
Right.
And using that to improve the offerings.
Right. Like, if nobody's using a particular benefit.
Yeah, maybe it's time to get rid of it.
Right. Yeah. Or maybe they're using something way more than you expected.
Yeah. And maybe you need to expand it.
And then the second strategy is to apply predictive analytics.
So this is using data.
To try to anticipate things, right?
Yeah, like who's at risk of leaving the company.
Or burnout.
Yeah, so you can intervene early.
Right.
And provide support.
Which I think is great.
It is. It's being proactive.
Yeah.
Instead of reactive.
And then the third strategy is to segment rewards by persona.
So this is going beyond just like demographics.
Right, like age or gender.
Yeah, it's about understanding your employees' behaviors,
Right.
your preferences,
Right, their life stage.
their needs, their wants.
And the fourth strategy is to monitor pay, equity, and compression in real time.
Yeah, so thanks to technology, companies can now track pay's fairness continuously.
Right, not just like once a year.
Yeah, and Mercer's data shows that like more and more companies are doing this.
Which I think is good for employees, right?
Yeah, it means you're more likely to be paid fairly.
Right.
And then the fifth strategy is to integrate feedback loops.
So getting input from employees.
Yeah, through surveys, focus groups, even just like informal conversations.
Right, because the numbers can't tell you everything.
Exactly.
And then the sixth strategy is to centralize data.
Yeah, so having all the data in one place.
Right, from HR, from payroll, from benefits.
So you can see the whole picture.
And make better decisions.
Exactly.
And Paycheck's data suggests that, like, a lot of companies are moving in that direction.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
So I think we're seeing how, like, data can really transform how we think about total rewards.
Yeah, it have a lot of potential.
But it's all about using it responsibly.
Right. Ethically.
Okay, let's talk about the big picture. Like, how do we make sure that total rewards are actually aligned with, you know, both the company's goals and the people's needs?
Right. It's got to be aligned with both.
Exactly. And the playbook cites data from Willis Towers Watson that shows that, like, most HR leaders actually get that this is important.
Yeah. They know it's a top priority.
But less than half feel like they're actually doing it well.
So there's a gap there.
Right. And the playbook outlines 5 actions to kind of close that gap.
Okay.
The first one is define a clear total rewards philosophy.
So it's not just like random decisions.
Right.
It's based on a set of principles.
And it should be connected to company's overall strategy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the second action is to embed total rewards into workforce planning.
So when you're thinking about like hiring people, developing people, retaining people,
Right.
total rewards should be part of that conversation.
Right, from the beginning.
Exactly.
And then action number 3 is use total rewards as a signal of culture.
Yes. So your compensation, your benefits, your flexibility.
All of it, right.
Yeah.
Should communicate what the company actually values.
Like, are you about transparency? Are you about work-life balance?
Right.
Those kind of things.
And then the fourth action is to involve people managers.
Yeah. Get them on board.
Right. And employees in the design and execution.
Yeah. Get their input.
Right. Because they're the ones who are actually experiencing these programs.
Yeah. And then finally, establish governance.
Yeah.
And measure what matters.
So this is about, like, setting KPIs. Yeah.
Key performance indicators.
And actually tracking the impact of these programs.
Yeah. Are they working?
Yeah.
Are they not working?
And the playbook mentions Paycheck's data that shows that more and more companies are actually investing in this kind of measurement.
Yeah, which is a good sign.
Right.
It means they're taking it seriously.
So to sum it all up, I think the key takeaway from the 2025 Total Rewards Playbook is that total rewards are becoming so much more human-centered.
Right. It's about purpose. It's about fairness. It's about flexibility. It's about well-being.
Yeah, it's not just about, like, you know, a ping pong table in the break room.
Exactly.
It's about so much more than that.
Right. And when it comes to compensation, expect to see more transparency,
Yeah.
more emphasis on fair pay.
And clear communication.
Yeah, so you know what's going on.
From your employer about like how they make those decisions, right?
Absolutely.
And benefits are no longer just an afterthought
Yeah, they're strategic
to
tools.
support your health, your financial security, your well-being.
And they're a big reason why people stay at companies.
Huge. Look for affordability,
Mm-hmm.
comprehensive support,
Yeah.
and options that are actually tailored to your needs.
And we're also seeing that flexibility in terms of where you work, when you work.
Right.
And opportunities for internal career growth are becoming really important.
Super important to attract talent
Mm-hmm.
and just create a more equitable workplace.
Yeah, for sure.
And then finally, remember that while data is really powerful,
Yeah.
it should inform those human decisions, right?
And not dictate them.
Right. So the best total reward strategies will use data, but also consider people's needs and preferences.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 2025 Total Rewards Playbook, okay,